You're listening to The Safety and the Sportswriter on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good evening, everybody. It is Thursday, June 10th, and you're with The Safety and the Sportswriter Show with Knoxville Nate and Big Joe. Ready to talk to you about the world of sports. We have a lot to get to tonight. We got a lot of NBA, a lot of NFL, NCAA, football, a lot of things we're going to touch on tonight. Nate, this is the time of year when there's so many stories you don't know where to start. But I don't know if you saw the headline the other night. Good to go a little bit off subject. My favorite headline was homeless couple found arrested for having sex in park. I mean, where else are they supposed to have it? I thought it was a little off color, but it was funny. But that was one of my favorite headline. The other one today was Kate Hudson stays in shape by having sex. And I want to give her my address. So those are my two favorite headlines, but we'll get to sports now. We got a lot to get to tonight. We have the NBA playoffs. We have the like you said, we had the NFL and the NCAA. I know you got a rant to start with, so go ahead, give me what you got.
Well, just a short one here. I've never understood why the NBA gives out the MVP trophy before the season's over. I don't get it. They should make two MVP trophies, one for the regular season and one, I guess, for the whole shebang, including the playoffs, because, Jokic won the MVP, which, don't get me wrong, the guy had a great season, but he's gotten his ass kicked 2 games in a row against the Suns. And the Suns have not only beaten them, but they've embarrassed them. And Chris Paul has played amazing. He's the reason that, let's be honest, he's the reason that team is where they are right now. He's the reason that they beat the Lakers. He overcame an injury. Wasn't really able to shoot for that one game when he was dealing with a deep bone contusion, but did what he had to do defensively and running the offense to get the victory, and then came back and had some pretty good scoring games after that. And he's been amazing the first 2 games of the series over the Nuggets. Devin Booker's the best scorer on that team, but the best player on that team is Chris Paul. I think if you took into account the playoffs, I think he should be the MVP because he's definitely driving his team right to the Western Conference Finals, in my opinion.
Well, the thing is, Chris Paul is it could be the most valuable player wherever he goes. I mean, he changes the dynamic of every team he's on. It's that hard thing to. Is it most valuable or is it most outstanding? This goes on.
What's your take? Do you think they should do it? Right in the middle of the playoffs, announce who the MVP is, or do you think they should do it right after the regular season or after all of it's done? I think they should wait till all the playoffs are done.
If it's about the regular season, then you do it right before the playoffs. If it's about, and then you have one for the playoffs because it's 2 totally different seasons you're talking about, anyways.
Right.
And it's just like I said, basketball is tough. I mean, one thing I can say about basketball is every team has a most valuable player. I mean, you could sit there and go to every team. Julius Randle could be a most valuable player. I mean, where would the Knicks be without Julius Randle?
He's in my top 3 for sure. Chris Paul, Jokic, and Julius Randle. Those are the 3 that I think, did the most for their teams to be in the MVP contention. And I'm not saying that Jokic isn't deserving or isn't a good player. I'm just saying if you watch the first 2 games of that series, you can't sit here and tell me that Jokic is, more important than Chris Paul is because they've kicked their ass and beat them by 25 points or more 2 games in a row.
Right now, you really should open up the door, and if you're going to talk about it right now, you got to bring Trae Young into the discussion.
You better bring in Joel Embiid too. Yeah. I don't know if you've watched the first 2 games of this series.
80 points,
2 games in a row.
Yeah, 80 points in 2 games. I mean, it is one of those ridiculous things. The whole thing. I mean, I tend to, I respect awards, but a lot of times I think the way we classify and qualify for awards, it's kind of like the Hall of Fame to me. It turns into a who cares discussion because it's a popularity contest. There's no reference to why. It's just sometimes it's his turn, but like you said, it's just it's ridiculous.
I agree. I think several times. I know several times throughout the last 16 or 17 years, LeBron James has been the most valuable player in this league, but he hasn't won the award because they didn't want to give it to him, every year. But for the past 16 years, he has been the most dominant player in this league, and at times the most valuable player. More than he's won. And I know he's won 4 MVPs, but there's been more than 4 times he's been the most valuable player.
Well, if you look at Michael Jordan. He should have won as many times as he was in the league. He should have probably won 12 out of 13, whatever. He was the best player on his team. He was the reason the Bulls were in the playoffs. He was the reason the Bulls were winning championships. It's one of those awards that really they've got to figure out what it means. What does it mean? Where would this team be without this player, or is he the most outstanding player of the year? And kind of bring it so we can figure out. And when you're talking about basketball hypocrisy, there's nothing worse in that I wanted to talk about than the Indiana Pacers firing their first year coach. I can't pronounce his last name. Nate Bjorken.
Yeah.
They fire him after 1 year, and their GM, Kevin Pritchard, I love this quote, and that's why I copied it down. There's certain traits that are non-negotiable for me going forward, Pritchard said Wednesday. I hope I've learned this in terms of selecting the right coach. Yeah, well, Nate McMillan has done a pretty damn good job in Atlanta. And the fact of the matter is he had you in the playoffs 4 straight years. Three straight years, you were second in your division at least. But that wasn't good enough for you. And now this guy, you get rid of him after 1 year, and I can't tell you I watched a lot of Indiana Pacers basketball. NBA is my number one thing, but they didn't have exactly a great team out there. When Brodsky is your best player,
yeah, I know. What did they want him to do? They wanted him to win the championship with that roster. I thought they actually did pretty good. Considering who they had. I know they were 34-38, but they were in the playoff discussion until the last week and a half. And, injuries really contributed to them, limping to the finish line. Miles Turner was lost for the last 19 games. Jeremy's Lamb's leg, cost him the last 17 games, and Malcolm Brogdon was out the final 10 for his hamstring. So you put those 3 guys back on the court, and who says they don't make it to the play-in game or make it into the first round?
And how I would be if I was him, I would be going low and silent, high, silent and deep, and not bringing any attention about myself, especially in the middle of the playoffs. When my former coach just, led his team to an upset over the Knicks in the first round and are in a dogfight with Philadelphia in the second round. Don't bring attention on yourself. I think it's the dumbest thing I just couldn't believe when I saw that.
It's pretty ridiculous. And, I think they've proven time and time again that they have no clue what they're doing up at the top of the Pacers organization.
And not since Bird left. They haven't had a team really since, you had a team for a while. You had Paul George there, nothing. Yeah, how many good players have walked through Indianapolis and gone out the other end? Not since the Reggie Miller, Rick Smits, Mark Jackson days have they been a real, danger to move on in the playoffs. So, I'm sorry. I don't think much of Kevin Pritchard and what he had to say about that. But
that's what I'm saying. They haven't brought the players in, no matter who the coach is. So they can sit there and keep firing every coach every year and blaming them for the mishaps. But you have to bring talent. NBA is about superstars. We talk about that every episode of this podcast. You have to have a superstar to build around, and they haven't had one. The only one that they potentially had was Paul George, and they let him walk. So, take some of the blame yourself when you're the one screwing everything up.
All right. So overall, let's get to the NBA playoffs. Let's see if we got the teams that are alive. Start out, the Clippers, Utah, takes a 1-0 lead. What about that one? I mean, I know we just started talking about that before we came on the air. What was your view about it? I know you were watching the game, but you didn't see the end of it. So what was your view of it?
Yeah, I went back and watched the end the next day, but I just didn't see it live because when I cashed out, the Clippers were winning, and I thought we're playing pretty good. But I went back and watched it, and the Jazz were able to get stops at the end. I mean, close game 112 to 109. Jazz take game one and go up 1-0 over the Clippers in round 2 of the playoffs. And this Jazz team, overachieved all year long. And I think they're still doing that. I think they're overachieving because of the amount of effort. And I think you have to give, you got to give the coach a lot of credit there because it's, you talk about superstars and having to have them in the NBA. That's all we talk about. The Clippers have 2, and they're not playing bad. I mean, Paul George had 20. Kawhi Leonard had 23. It's not like neither one of those guys showed up, but they still lost. And you got to give credit to the Jazz. I mean, they don't have the biggest names, but they do have Donovan Mitchell, and he had 45 points in game 1. And so I think you can certainly call him a superstar at this point. And, the guys that he has around him, they go 9 deep. And, Clarkson was the 6th man of the year for a reason. He chipped in 18 points in 28 minutes. And I think in my estimation, that was the difference in the game.
Do you think, but the whole thing is, we've seen Kawhi. He seems to be, in the first round, it looked like they were in danger, and he took over the series. It's a little bit early, I'd say, to go to sleep on Kawhi, or say, and I know you're not going to sleep on him, but what do you think Utah has to do to maintain their advantage? Because they can't let the Clippers have any life. I mean, they really got to cash in.
No, I agree.
Game too.
Oh, I agree. 100%. They need to go up 2-0 going back to Los Angeles. I just think in order for them to have a chance of winning this series, I know that they had the better record in the regular season, but I'm just saying I'm not so sure that the Clippers aren't a better team or may not have more talent. And if the if the Jazz can't win game 2 and maintain home court advantage, I think they're going to have difficulty winning the series. So I agree. I think this game is humongous. I think they need to do exactly what they did in game 1, which is hold Kawhi around 20 points. I mean, if you can hold, I know 20 points isn't bad, but he can drop 40 on you really quickly. So if you can keep him somewhere around 20, you got a chance at winning because nobody else is going to kill you. I mean, Paul George, he's going to get his 15 to 20 points, if not 25. But if you can keep Kawhi right around 20 points, you got a real good shot at winning. And they need to keep getting production out of Donovan Mitchell. They need to keep getting production out of Jordan Clark off the bench. And Bogdanovich has been huge. He was 3 for 6 from three-point land and hit some big shots down the stretch. And they were plus 12 differential with Bogdanovich on the court. So he may have been just as important as anybody else, obviously other than Donovan Mitchell.
And then we got the other one out in the West. And we just touched on it when we were talking about Chris Paul. The Phoenix is up 2-0 over Denver, holding serve at home and now going out to the Mile High. Do you think Phoenix, since they got over their Lakers curse, are going to march through the Nuggets or what?
I do. I think I think that beating the Lakers, I think it did more for their psyche than anything. And then a lot of people, were saying, oh, they got a bad draw because they have to play the Lakers. Well, they were going to have to play them at some point anyway. So I think that going ahead and getting it done in the first round is huge. And, they really didn't have to go that deep winning in game 6. So, I think that really helped their team. It proved to them a couple of these guys that have never played in the playoffs before, like DeAndre Ayton and Devin Booker. It proved to them that they are good enough to win, that they can win, they can beat the defending champs. And if they can beat the defending champs, they can certainly beat Denver.
And how much is this going to help the Chris Paul legacy? I mean, we just talked about him. It should have been an MVP. We both agree with that. I've always loved Chris Paul, and I love his game. But, there was that rumor, the whispers, soft in big spots, soft in the playoffs. Over here, he was beat up in the Lakers series and came back and led his team to victory. I know we're unfair as media or fans. We put these labels on these guys. In your mind, does this take those whispers away? Does this shut them up?
It certainly should. I was never one of those people that said that to begin with. I understand where it's coming from. I understand why some people feel that way. But anybody that's actually watched him closely throughout his career and seen the impact that he has, I mean, Chris Paul had 15 assists with 0 turnovers. I mean, think about that for a second. This is a guy that's bringing the ball up every damn time. He's involved in, I mean, he had 17 points and 15 assists. So, do the math. That's how many points he was involved in. And he didn't turn the ball over once. And they were plus 26 differential with him on the court. So, that proves right there the importance of him, the value of him. And this guy's done it his whole career. Hell, when he was back on the Hornets and was on some horrible teams, he still, got them to victory many times just based on his skills alone. And he's one of the best point guards, in my opinion, that's ever played in this league. He's definitely top 10, top 15 point guard of all time, in my estimation.
All right, I'm going to ask you a couple, just throw it out there. I mean, him or Jason Kidd, would you take?
That's a tough one because both of those guys were superior distributors of basketball. Jason Kidd, everybody said, he couldn't score, but it seemed to be whenever he had to score, he could. So, I never want to take anything away from Jason Kidd and the tremendous career that he had. But if you're asking me straight up, who would I take? I'd take Chris Paul.
This one I think is going to be easier for you because I totally agree with you. Him or Stockton?
Whoa. That one's a little bit tougher, but I actually would say Stockton.
Really?
I would. Stockton was one of the greatest point guards of all time. I mean, I don't know if you watched a ton of the Utah Jazz, but man, they were tough.
I was more of an NBA fan back then, but I got to say, but I don't know. I think Chris Paul takes a little bit because he did it with different teams at different times. It was always, Stockton and Malone. I mean, he was in Utah. God bless him because I love the fact that he stayed and, was in one location helping one team maintain its greatness throughout his time there. But when you see a guy, like you said, that's traveled where Chris Paul and had to start all over, and everywhere he goes, he becomes the centerpiece of his team, I think that gives me a little bit more with him. I mean, nothing against Stockton. I think he'll go down as one of the greatest point guards of all time. But I think having the same coach and the same kind of surrounding team for a lot of those years, I take Chris Paul a little bit over him.
No, I mean it's personal opinion, but John Stockton led the league in assists 9 times. He was 2-time Steal champion, 5-time All Defensive Team, 10-time All-Star. This is a guy who, just epitomized the position of point guard. I love Chris Paul, and I think very highly of him, and both those guys would be in the top 5 all time for me.
All right, let's come back east. Brooklyn taking care of business right now against Milwaukee. That's the good question. Is Giannis finished? I mean, talk about a guy who now is going to get that soft reputation. It's Giannis. What do you think?
I personally, I think they're done. It hasn't been close. It's not like the Bucks are right there and just have lost the first two games because they were close games and the ball just didn't bounce their way. They've gotten their ass kicked twice. That's not good. That's not good for the psyche of the Bucks. That's not good for them moving forward. I mean, these games have been blowouts. And the Nets have been playing without one of their big three. I mean, James Harden went out in the first minute of game one. So you're talking about a team where a guy who's averaging, 23 points and 10 assists and whatever he's averaging, it hasn't even been playing. So that's not a good scenario to think about. I mean, Durant has just been unstoppable. Kyrie Irving, as much as I hate the guy, has been playing very well. Blake Griffin has shown signs of life. Joe Harris has been solid. They look like, in my opinion, they look like the best team for me right now. I mean, KD, Kyrie, they combined for 54 points in game two. And, it hasn't been close.
Yeah, and I just watching the replay. It's fantastic. But I'll tell you, they are, for a guy who is in the shadow of Brooklyn. I mean, if I go down to the beach, I can look across and I can see New York City, and probably pick out, if I knew enough, I could probably pick out where Brooklyn is. And there's just no buzz about these guys. And I don't know, there's something about them for me. And you know me, I'm a bigger NHL fan than I am an NBA fan, but I almost don't want them to win because it just sets some kind of. It was bad enough when there was the big three in Miami, but at least they played every game. Now we're at a time where you got the big three plus maybe the big 3.5 if you count Blake Griffin, that didn't play together all year long, pretty much. Coasted. I can't say coasted. I mean, you're going to tell me I'm crazy for saying they coasted because they were the number 2 seed, but they seemingly played when they wanted to throughout the season, and just now, we're getting to see how great they could have been all season long. I mean, I don't know. I just it's hard for me to put into words how uninspired I am by this Brooklyn team.
No, I don't like them either. In fact, I want anyone to win except them. And I know that's horrible to say, but I'm being honest. I don't sugarcoat things and I don't lie on our show here and on the Safety and the Sportswriter. I give my opinions. I feel like that's what I'm here to do. And I don't like this team, because the way that they were built and how, two guys just decided that they were buds and they were going to go play together. And then they, James Harden wanted out of Houston because he didn't want to put the work in to, actually build a team around him. So he bolted and then joined them. And then, like you said, I agree with you. They did kind of coast. They just kind of, sat out. Kyrie kind of wouldn't show up when he wanted to, disappear for weeks at a time. And the fact they were able to keep winning shows you how good they are. But I think it does send a bad precedent if they were to win the title.
And the other thing is, like, you hope when one of those guys, when you put a trio together like this, I mean, you want to see one of those 70-win seasons. You know what I mean? You want to see one of those, 65-win seasons where they just destroy the competition. Just say, we got the three of the best players in the – we practically have an all-star team in our starting rotations, an all-star team. So the fact of the matter is, we should be putting teams away every night, and we should win 65, 70 games. And they didn't. So, I mean, but like you said, it's hard to believe someone's going to be able to stop them. And the two teams that probably, Philadelphia and Atlanta, we got to hope that Philadelphia is able to get through because I don't think Atlanta has enough to beat this team.
No, I don't either. I think that Philadelphia is the only team that might give them a battle from the the East perspective. Can Philadelphia beat them? I don't know. At this point, it doesn't look real good. But they match up better with them, in my estimation. With the players that the 76ers have, I think they match up better and have a better chance. But the Hawks are giving them fits right now, giving them everything they want. So there's no foregone conclusion that the Sixers are gonna win that series. And if the Hawks do end up winning it, I agree with what you just said. I think that the Nets will roll the Hawks very easily.
Can Doc Rivers have an effect on the playoffs? I mean, you're more of an aficionado of big time basketball. We talk a lot. We talked about Billy Donovan last year during the playoffs. We were talking about the effect of coaches. I mean, we disagreed a little bit about the Laker coach last year and the job he did. But I mean, right now, when you look at the, for lack of a better term, the sixth man aspect of it, Doc Rivers on the bench against Nate McMillan, I take my chances with Doc Rivers on that bench over Nate McMillan.
Yeah, I mean, I like both those guys, to be honest with you. I think Nate McMillan is a solid coach, and he's a guy that's a winner. I mean, he's proven that he can win in this league. But Doc Rivers has won a championship, so he knows what it takes to get it done. I agree with you in that aspect that he should be more of a help to his team, being that he's been there before. I know that they didn't win the championship last year, but he coached a Clippers team who performed pretty well in my estimation, considering it was the first year where they really had that team together. And I think he's doing a hell of a job with this 76ers team. If you really, I know that Monty Williams got the coach of the year from the Suns, and he did a fantastic job. But if you look at the Sixers last year, and then you turn around and look at the Sixers this year, it's a completely different team, and the way that they're playing is completely different based on Doc's philosophy and the way that he's gotten these guys to buy in.
I totally agree with that. I mean, that the coach they had last year was totally out of his he was good for them when they were building, but he couldn't take them to the next level. Before we get away from the NBA, one rumor I saw today, I guess the Celtics are shopping Kemba, and they're saying Oklahoma City is a possible place for him to go. First of all, man, if I was the Celtics, there's another team. I wouldn't be rushing to make moves right now. I'd be looking at every aspect before I make any kind of moves to make sure I'm making the right moves. I mean, Brad Stevens, his first move will be to get rid of Kemba Walker. He better be bringing back something or some kind of a help or a contract they can get rid of or something. I don't know. What do you think about the possibility of Kemba going?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really see the trade possibility with OKC. I mean, who are you going to get if you trade him to the Thunder? I mean, I just, the only real piece of that Thunder team is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and they're not going to trade him.
No.
So who are you trading him for? I mean, that's the only thing that I have a problem with. There's no real trade capital on that Thunder team. I think it would be great for the Thunder to get him, but I don't think it's a good idea from the Celtics perspective.
Yeah, I mean, maybe last year you got Nerlens Noel or somebody for him. Maybe that would have worked. Who knows? But yeah, I don't think this year that's the way to go. I think we're going to move on to the NFL now.
Sure.
Okay, we're going to talk about what did you want to bring up with the NFL?
Well, the main thing I was going to talk about before was actually college football.
Oh, college. Let's go to college.
Talk about the the top players coming back for 2021. Basically, the breakout candidates. There were some lists that came out this week. Both 247 Sports and also PFF came out with their top 20 or top 25 breakout players for 2021. And, those guys know what they're doing. They've got some good good folks on there, but I disagreed with some of their choices, and had my own thoughts on who I would have picked.
Let's go.
Yeah, nothing against those guys, but their number one breakout performer on PFF was DJ Ugalele, the quarterback from Clemson, and don't disagree wholeheartedly with that one. I think he started 2 games, once against Boston College, one against Notre Dame, and let's be honest, he didn't look like a freshman playing in his first 2 games right there.
No, he played well against Notre Dame. He could have won that game.
Oh yeah, I mean they didn't lose because of the quarterback. They just couldn't stop the Irish on defense, and that certainly wasn't his fault. He had an 83.6 passing grade. He had over 5 big time throws, 0 turnover worthy plays in both those games, and he showed that he can throw the ball 70 yards with the flick of his wrist. So this guy has all the tools. He had some mechanical problems that are noted, but those are things that come with experience. So I think he will be a breakout player, and I think that he's going to have a stellar season. I mean, they're making some changes on offense. Obviously, Travis Etienne is gone. Amari Rodgers is gone. Cornell Powell is gone. They're going to have a lot of new faces, but this guy's played before, and he's proven that he's got the talent to be a big time player. So no argument there. But I did have a little bit of a riff with PFF picking edge rusher Boye Mafi from Minnesota. This is a guy who hasn't been able to stay on the field.
Right.
Definitely got a lot of talent, and he's got the burst, he's got the strength, he's got the quickness, he's got the size. But I haven't seen anything from him that'll lead me to believe that he's going to play the whole season. And that's kind of where my conflicting viewpoints start right there. Got a lot of talent in that guy, but I think, in my estimation, the guys that are going to break out even more are the defensive end, outside linebacker for Alabama, Will Anderson Jr. This is a guy that we talked about last year. I know you remember in the college football preview show, he was one of my freshmen that I picked that was going to bust out. And bust out did he? I mean, this guy had a tremendous season. He led, his team to the national championship. I don't know what else he wanted this guy to do. He certainly didn't look like he was a freshman. And he played 13 games. He had one of the highest passing pressure rates of any pass rusher in Division I, and he had a 20% win rate. So this is a guy where the sky is the limit. And I think, Will Anderson Jr., they didn't even talk about him that much last year because it didn't seem like he was a freshman. But when you really think about somebody starting on that team and being that important to a team as a first-year player, I think is something that in my mind is pretty tremendous.
Yeah, I mean, I think, first of all, I think that choice is right there. But I mean, I think sometimes right now at this point, Clemson and Alabama have put themselves so far ahead of the grade that sometimes the casual observer, they don't understand how big it is for a freshman to step in on a team with that much expectations and have to play up to that level. I mean, he leapfrogged over some guys that were sitting around for 2-3 years waiting for their chance. So, and Saban's not going to give him a long leash. So he had the pressure on him every week, and he responded and he came up big. The only thing I'll say about the Clemson quarterback being termed as a breakout guy, I kind of think it's now become expected for the Clemson quarterbacks to perform at a certain level. I think the only thing that would be shocking, I wouldn't call him a breakout guy because to me, a breakout guy is somebody coming unexpectedly on the scene. I think it's kind of the only thing that would be shocking is he didn't do well. And I think he's going to do well. No,
I agree with that. I think they're talking about, I agree. I think he's not really like, we don't know what he is, but he only really started and played serious minutes in 2 games. So, I think they're talking about him, being the full-time starter and really cementing his name in college football. But yeah, we've seen him. We know who he is. It's just, can he handle the entire season and keep them, people don't realize, and you make a great point there, that we expect him to be great, but people don't realize being the quarterback at Clemson right now, being the quarterback at Ohio State right now, being the quarterback at Oklahoma right now, you're expected to win every single game.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a tremendous amount of pressure. And that's why I don't think Justin Fields got the credit that he deserved, considering if you lose one game, it's just an immense amount of just people that are upset, people that are critical, coming at you from every angle for having one misstep. So it's a lot of pressure, and there's going to be a lot of pressure on that kid's back because they're going to be expected to go to the national championship again.
Well, I mean, I grew up watching, as a Notre Dame fan, watching what Notre Dame could do to quarterbacks, being the Notre Dame quarterback. I mean, it finally took Ron Powlus for the Notre Dame faithful to realize that just because a guy has a great reputation in high school and is picked by Notre Dame to come there, that you don't automatically mean he's going to be great. And unfortunately for his ability or whatever ability, maybe didn't have that much ability, I don't know, but he started failing, and then they really haven't had a really great quarterback since then. I mean, you might give me Brady Quinn, who was, I think, a solid quarterback in NCAA, but no, I wouldn't call him great. I mean, he never had really big moments there. His biggest moment was a loss to USC, as far as I'm concerned. Otherwise it was as expected. So I agree. Once you get it to one of these universities where quarterbacks, you're following the line of quarterbacks like those guys, where you thought at Notre Dame, you're throwing around, names like Montana and Theismann. And these other programs where you're throwing around, in Oklahoma, you're throwing around, Mayfield and you're throwing around all those names. Yeah, you got to perform every week.
Yeah, and I think that, we'll get back to the list here in a second, but just another point on that. If you think back to last year, Spencer Rattler coming in, following, 2-3 Heisman Trophy winners, and Jalen Hurts, who was a Heisman runner-up or finished third. I mean, these were 3 guys in a row that were probably the best quarterbacks in the country, or in the top 2. And then he's expected to do the same thing. And when they lost in week 1, I think a lot was dumped on him. And the next couple of games, he really tried to do too much. And that's why me and you talk about all the time that Texas game where they took him out. And they sat him on the sidelines for about 2 series. And they, Lincoln Riley doing that was a big gamble. You could have killed his confidence completely. But, Lincoln Riley knew the kind of guy that Spencer was, and taking him out and sitting him over there and being like, listen, calm down, relax, just do what I tell you to do, and don't try and win the game yourself. And then he came back out and he was a different guy.
I think if I'm right, I think there's a tie. I think USC, Notre Dame, and Oklahoma have each had 9 Heisman Trophy winners. So Rattler could put him over to the top. I don't think Notre Dame has a Heisman Trophy winner, and I don't think USC has a Heisman Trophy winner on their roster this year.
No, I don't either. So yeah, it's definitely a chance, and I expect Spencer to be a breakout player too. I think he will have a tremendous season. They are loaded with talent once again. I think he's got a shot at winning the Heisman Trophy, because I don't think there's anybody in the Big 12 that can play with them.
No.
I really don't.
And unless Oklahoma or Iowa State turned out to be the team they were supposed to be, I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
Let's. Who's our next breakout guy?
Yeah, my next breakout guy is a dude he's been mentioned by some of these lists, but he's a guy that I've loved since I watched him play in high school, and that's Oregon's Kayvon Thibodeau. I know a lot of people are big on this guy, and I'm no different. This is a dude that had a 12 pressure performance against USC, and was going up against Elijah Vera Tucker, who was a high draft pick in this year's draft. And, he was in the backfield the whole game. This is a dude who has an 80 pass rush grade for PFF. And there's just nobody like him in the, in college football right now. I mean, he's got the potential to be the number 1 pick in the draft next year if he has a big season, and that just means getting big numbers. And he did what he needed to do. He proved last year that he has the ability to make the plays. It's just a matter of doing it. And he certainly lived up to the billing as a true freshman. He was the best freshman in the Pac-12. So I think this is a big year for him, and I expect him to be pretty much unstoppable. And he's going to be on national television for everybody to see when they're playing playing in Columbus against the Buckeyes. Oregon's going to be taking them on in and out of conference games. So we're going to see just how good he is going up against Thayer Munford and Nicholas Petit-Frere, the 2 offensive linemen that'll be on his side in that big matchup.
Not to stray too far from the subject, but since we're talking about, Pac-12 people, I think in the Pac-12, they're coming up on a big TV contract this year, if I saw that right. And it looks to me like outside of Oregon, I don't know who I like out there in the Pac-12. And big year for them. And really right now, they're kind of on the outside looking in when we're talking about the top 5 conferences. I mean, they even make the ACC look powerful. What do you think about the Pac-12 overall this year? What do you think about somebody coming back? Stanford, maybe, UCLA, anybody going to come out there and challenge Oregon?
I haven't done a ton of work on it to be able to tell you right now who I think, has a chance to win the conference, but I have done enough to know that they need to do something. I mean, the Pac-12 definitely had a down year. Washington, Stanford, Cal, those teams are teams that have had big years in the last decade, but, all I think took a step back last season. It's a big year for Keaton Slovis at USC. He's coming off a year in 2020 where, they only played 6 games. So it was kind of hard to tell, what exactly he'd be able to do for a full season. So it's going to be interesting. But I think, Arizona State is a team that, has the potential to at least, get to the championship game. I think Herman Edwards, God love him, has done a great job recruiting down there. And they're loaded with talent. It comes back to old Herman. He's always been a great leader. He's always been a good fundamentals coach in my estimation. I really like Herm Edwards, but it's going to come down to, can he do a good job in-game coaching, making adjustments at halftime, developing a game plan. These are things that I don't know, we got to see if he's got the ability to do it in a big-time setting in college football, because they've got the firepower down there in Tempe.
Yeah, I liked Herman Edwards when he was with the Jets. The only thing is, you just named the stuff that bothers you about him: timeout management, clock management. So, I mean, as far as inspiring his team to play better than they can or should, he's one of the best. But the fact of the matter is, in my estimation, with Herman Edwards, it's those little things. It's always like, why did he take a timeout there? Why didn't he go for 2? Why did he take? It's always that one question mark where you sit there and you go, what were you thinking? And it takes away. Overall, he's always a winning coach. I mean, he had the Jets in the playoffs most years.
Oh yeah. I mean, they've struggled since, except for those 2 years that Mangini actually built a pretty decent roster, and then they, front office and him got into a rift, so they kicked his ass out, and your boy,
Rex.
Your boy Rex came in and got to reap the fruits and benefit of Mangini's labor,
like he did when Marvin Lewis's defense down in Baltimore. Oh yeah, I built this defense. Okay.
Oh yeah, I'm a defensive genius because I came in and took over from Marvin Lewis, who'd already set this up for 12 years.
And then I got out of Ed Reed and Ray Lewis's way.
Yeah, it's so true, man. I could have coached that defense after Marvin Lewis had been scheming it up for 10 years. A lot of those guys knew what they were doing. I mean, Terrell Suggs, go get the quarterback. Oh, way to go, Rex.
Yeah, I mean, Ray Lewis was maybe one of the last. We'll see. It seems to be a dying breed of the 3-down linebackers who never came off the field. Unfortunately, that's a dying breed right now, and it's with Luke Kuechly leaving, those kind of guys. But I mean, what you look out in the field and go, Ray, what do you think we should do?
Yeah, that's what I would have done. So yeah, it'll be interesting. But just going back, finishing this up, Miles Murphy is a guy too, just like Will Anderson that we talked about in the breakout. The incoming freshman for last year that we picked to be guys that would be impact performers. In their first year, and Miles Murphy for Clemson and Will Anderson, those were the two that I really highlighted that I just thought would be guys that would come in and start right away, even on the best two teams in the country. And they did. Miles Murphy's 6'5", 275, probably the best run defender at defensive end in the conference, maybe in the country. And he took a large role on as a freshman. I mean, he started 6 or 7 games. He had 423 snaps. This is a guy who will start this year, and I think may be the best pass rusher and overall defensive end in college football. I mean, him and Will Anderson are my two favorite edge rusher players. And, this guy, as far as Miles Murphy goes, is a guy that can play the run really well. Just like Will Anderson.
Yeah, I don't doubt that. I usually you usually nail those guys, those early guys, those guys coming in, and I totally agree with that. Anybody else on your list?
Well, I mean, there's a couple guys that are on these lists that I want to agree with, but I'm kind of questioning. And there's 2 guys that are on the PFF list. Zach Harrison from Ohio State. He's a guy that I talked about last year. Having big shoes to fill, taking over for Chase Young and the Bosa brothers. And you know what? I love Zach, but he really didn't live up to the billing. I mean, he had 19 pressures on 102 rushes. But you know what? He didn't get every snap. This is a defense that still had a lot of guys like Jonathan Cooper and Tyreek Smith, and he still wasn't out there the whole time. I think this year they're going to put more on Zach Harrison, and we're going to find out what he's really like. I mean, I don't think he's a dominant type guy like Chase Young was, but he's a guy that can definitely get double-digit sack totals. So we'll see what happens with him. And then the other guy is Florida's quarterback, Emory Jones. This is a guy that honestly was pegged to be the starter last year. And he got beaten out by Kyle Trask, and he was never able to take over, the starting job for him. This is a guy that came in to the game a lot and, played in spot duty, kind of being an athlete out there, running the Wildcat, coming in on 3rd and short and running one of the read option plays. But you know what? It's a lot different, doing that a couple of times a game and being the quarterback that's out there, the entire time. So I'm not ready to say that he's going to tear it up because I just haven't seen it from him. And I'm very interested to see what he does, because this is a guy that was originally going to Ohio State and then changed his commitment and went down with Dan Mullen in Florida. Definitely a talented guy and definitely has the tools. But, can he do it? Can he lead Florida over Georgia and win the East and the SEC? I'm not ready to say that he can until I see him do it.
Well, I wanted to bring up a subject with you that I don't know you saw the story. I think it hit yesterday or the day before. Family name is definitely legendary and a golden name in football. But Luke McCaffrey leaves Nebraska, goes to Louisville, and before he gets through one summer practice, now that is not gifted the starting quarterback job to him. And I looked at his stats in Nebraska. He had 1 touchdown pass and 6 interceptions. You know, he didn't even throw for 600 yards. Why did he think that he was entitled to walk in to Louisville and have the starting job? I mean, this is the one thing about the portal. It can't be for a spoiled baby to sit there and keep, putting himself into the portal till he finally finds a team that's desperate enough to put him in and make him the starter right away.
Well, and this is, I don't have all the answers yet because this is a new situation. So, but I'm very interested to see what happens because apparently now he's leaving Louisville and going somewhere else. So now does he have to sit out? Because you're only supposed to have 1 free transfer unless you're a grad transfer, and then you can transfer again and not have to sit out. But if you have not graduated, which Luke McCaffrey has not, it's my understanding that he would have to sit out next year. So, he must have not only been, if that's the case, he must have been very far off from the starting role. And as you mentioned, just with those little stats, this isn't a guy that proved at Nebraska that he can throw the football. This is a guy that most of the time that I saw him out there, he looked like he should move to running back, maybe move to wide receiver, be an H-back type player that runs the ball, catches the ball. Just a guy that, can do stuff with the ball in his hands, but he just doesn't look like he's got a good enough arm and is a good enough quarterback to really start at a big-time program. And I think he's a good enough athlete to play, but just based on what I saw, I don't think he's really good enough to be a full-time starting quarterback at a major program, and that it hasn't worked out 2 spots so far, and I really don't see it working out at a third unless he goes to a smaller style program.
The other thing was the thing that's breaking now. I mean, I don't think it'll grow into the story like Sandusky at Penn State and Paterno, especially since Bo Schembechler is dead. But apparently his son came out yesterday and said how the team doctor abused him as a child and was allowed to abuse other players on the Wolverine team with the knowledge of Bo Schembechler. Bo is still a god up there in Michigan, and he's not around to defend himself either. But it does come from his son. What did you think when you saw that story?
Well, yeah, I mean, the timing of it's definitely strange. I mean, why would you bring that up when, so much later? And I guess, now is, the age of coming out with all the scandals, and they love to do all that. But it just seems weird that nothing. I mean, if this was a major cover-up, they've done a pretty damn good job because it's not something that I've ever heard of, and he hasn't coached there in over 30-something years. So if he kept this a secret for 30-something years, like I said, they did a damn good job.
Yeah, that's for sure. Couple of things before we move on. Going to go a little NFL right now. First of all, again, now I guess they started up the Deshaun Watson talks, and Denver looks like a place. What is with Denver? I mean, it's the place. Is it just speculation? People throwing up against the wall and seeing who sticks. Yesterday it was Aaron Rodgers. Today it's Deshaun Watson. Yeah, I feel so sorry for Teddy Bridgewater at this point.
Not only him, but the other quarterback, the guy they drafted out of Missouri, Drew Lock, who's still trying to prove that he can do it. Every day there's a new story about how they're going to bring somebody else in, and we'll see. I don't know. I think if anything was going to happen with either of those guys, it would have already been done. But it kind of makes the Broncos look bad. And is a terrible look for them that every guy that's potentially wants to be traded, we need a quarterback. We need a quarterback. Well, you already have 2. So maybe you should calm that noise a little bit because it's making you look pathetic. I don't think either one of those guys is bad enough to where, if they don't bring somebody in, the season is over. I think they've got the potential of winning some games out there with one or both of those guys playing at some time during the season. But we'll see what happens. I don't think Deshaun has any leverage right now, so I don't know. I think it was his camp releasing that story. They just wanted something positive to come out about Deshaun. No one's going to trade for that guy right now, no matter what, until this legal jargon is cleared up.
What about that, too? I mean, isn't it time for Goodell to get in there and make – I mean, to be fair, we have a guy who's in limbo trying to get out of town, may be guilty of some heinous crimes or may not be. But you're talking about one of your supposed stars and you're supposed to be protecting his shield. Shouldn't Goodell start the investigation now so we can figure out if this guy's going to be suspended? I mean, like you said, why would you trade for him when he might miss half a season? And
yeah, you can't trade for him now.
And if he's not guilty, you're stalling this guy's career. I mean, I just think at this point, Roger Goodell should get off his butt. They've got plenty of investigators that work for the NFL. Get out there, interview these girls, figure out if there's a there, and they've suspended other guys on suspicion. All they have to do is for the betterment of the game, just get it done. So it's not going to be something where in the middle of camp it comes back up. First we get a season, it comes back up. Do it now.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's the quicker the better for everybody involved, not only Deshaun, but the team. I mean, what are they going to do? They need to figure out who needs to be getting the reps, here at practice and what their situation is, because, that's a big that they can't run the same offense with Ryan Finley out there or Deshaun Watson. I mean, that's two different players and two different skill sets. I'm not saying he's going to definitely be the starter, but I'm just saying, depending on who starts, they're going to have to, build the offense around that guy's skill set, and something needs to be done. They need to get it on, get the investigation going. And at least, if they think that where there's smoke, there's fire, then he needs to be suspended until the investigation's cleared up. If there is no smoke or no fire near the smoke, and they think this is all a farce, then they need to come out with that and help clear up their boys. So, something definitely needs to be done, and I'm interested to see what happens. Hopefully it'll be cleaned up this summer.
I mean, and also for the Texans too, like I was just thinking, just came to mind for me. I mean, say Aaron Rodgers does end up in Denver. Teddy Bridgewater's out there and Deshaun gets suspended. I'd rather have Teddy Bridgewater running my team than Finley.
Yeah.
So you want to make that trade.
I'm with you. I'm with you. It needs to help so that the dominoes can fall
start
into
to fall.
Place. Yeah. And
one
other thing I was going to say about the college football, I don't know if you saw what came out yesterday and today and been talked about a lot, is the competition committee and the championship committee is going to talk about doing a 12-team.
I just saw
format.
that.
Yeah, it's a big, it's a big thing that they're really looking into, and I
I think it's
great.
great.
We've been talking about this for years. The two top teams have a bye. The number, or I think it was the four conference champions have a bye, and then everybody else plays round one, and then they pick up right after that. I think it's necessary. I think it's something they should do. But you got people like Booger McFarland coming out and saying at some point, we need to think of the kids, and this is too many games and all this. And I'm like, come on, man. It's not too many games. You can play, you can cut out a game of the regular season if you need to.
Yeah.
Or, do something to get rid of one of these meaningless games and
thank you
playoff like everyone else has.
Make it a 10-game season. I don't care about that, and put the ones who get the championship, make those games count, and rather than Booger McFarland should sometimes I don't know. Sometimes I think he should think more before he talks, because sometimes he comes up and it's like you didn't really think that through, Booger. Another thing I saw, and I don't know if you saw this, Philly cut Jamie Newman.
I did see that. It's something that we talked about before. The reason he went undrafted wasn't because of his talent, ability, or skill set. It was because there was a lot of question marks as to why, he left Georgia when he was about to, possibly win the starting job. And, just that it wasn't that he opted out. Lots of guys opted out. It was the timing of it. And it was the whole thing about transferring to a big-time program like Georgia, going through camp and then opting out at the end. I think it rubbed people the wrong way. And I think, the way that Philadelphia has handled signing him and then getting rid of him quick, it's not a good look for him at all.
Well, it kind of makes you think about Haskins with the Redskins and saying, maybe he's not showing up in the film room on time. Maybe he's not doing the extra stuff that you expect to see. Maybe they're already seeing some little things that maybe last year being on the field would have helped him work through, that he's officially really a year and a half behind everybody else. So
yeah, I think too. I think what a lot of people said down at the Senior Bowl was this is a guy that's right on par for a position change, and a lot of people thought that this guy would be better served moving to fullback, moving to tight end, changing positions just because of his inability to be a big-time NFL quarterback and handle what goes into the passing game at an NFL level. So, I think that those guys may have been right in their evaluation because he's no longer a QB for the Eagles.
Yeah, definitely. That's going to be a hard sell for a guy who's been a quarterback all his life to sit there and suddenly not be the glamour position. One more thing about the NFL before we move on. We got did you see Sam Darnold something about whether he's going to get the vaccine or not? He's vacillating about it. And I just wanted to bring up this one quote that I thought was great. And he said, he's taking his time to make his decision. And somebody said, sounds like him on the field.
Old Sam. Gotta love him.
Yeah, the guy who he misses almost 3/4 of a season because of mono, and he wants to take a chance with COVID. I don't know. All right, that's a good move, him. You got a couple more things. I got a couple more things to end up with. If you don't, you got some more stuff to go.
No, I thought we were up against it, but yeah, you're good, man.
Yeah, I got a couple of big things. Just a couple of local things, and maybe you'll get onto it, maybe not. First of all, New York Islanders, congratulations to them moving to the semifinals in the Stanley Cup. I always have this argument with a friend of mine who's a big Ranger fan because he hates Lou Lamoriello, who's the GM of the Islanders. He was the GM who put together the Devils in the late 90s, in the early part of this century, and won 3 Stanley Cups with them. And then he goes up to Toronto, turns them around. Then he comes down to the Islanders, and all of a sudden they're a power again. And of all the people of all the sports, when you talk about GMs, I don't care if you talk. And everybody knows my thing about Brian Cashman. You talk about all these GMs. Lou Lamoriello's got to be the best GM I've ever seen in any sport because he doesn't do it with superstars. He does it by making the right trades and getting the players at the right. He knows how to pick the guy at the right time in his career that will come in on his team and fit in and do the job he's supposed to do. And picks the right coaches at the right time, and his teams are always competitive. And right now in New York, we're getting a little hockey crazy. We'll see what happens over the next couple of weeks to see if the Islanders can maybe steal a cup and bring it back to the tri-state area. And the other thing, I don't know if you saw this one last week. I felt like I was watching a congressional hearing. Garrett Cole about the sticky stuff.
I did not see that one.
Oh, well, he was questioned about using sticky stuff because that is somebody, I guess Josh Donaldson, who he faced last night, came out and said he thinks he's using it. And he came out with one of the weirdest answers saying, I don't know how to answer that. It was like a non-denial denial. And I was just looking at his stats kind of. And look, me, and anybody who listens to our show, anytime I can pick on the Yankees, I look for it. But, Garrett Cole, I was looking at his stats, and before he went down to Houston, which we all know has a reputation for cheating, and there had been rumors that Charlie Morton's game suddenly improved when he started pitching for Houston after he left Pittsburgh. Well, Garrett Cole, man, his stats measurably better down in Houston. And, he went from being a good pitcher to a Cy Young candidate, and he's continued it on as he's come to New York his first two. So I would have to say, in my estimation, if he doesn't come right out and say he didn't do it, I gotta believe he's doing it. And it's one of the things everybody's saying is affecting baseball is because instead of what steroids did for the batters, 20 or 10, 15 years ago, this sticky stuff is doing for the pitchers. And that's why the batting averages are so low. That's why these hitters can't hit. And now baseball is going to have to figure out what they're going to do. It's going to be interesting to see is now that they're going to have the umpires looking for this stuff, if suddenly we start to see more offense.
Yeah, I mean, that would be definitely a telltale sign that something was going on. I mean, we've asked ourselves many times, what is the reason that these guys are struggling so much to hit the baseball? And, I wouldn't put it past them. You got to think that with the scandal with the Astros and the Red Sox and all the teams that were stealing signs and essentially cheating their way to a World Series, anything's possible. It wouldn't shock me if it came out that he had a damn sander in his pocket and he was, making notches in the ball so that it would move more. I certainly wouldn't doubt it if the report came out.
I mean, that's what it got me at that time, too. I mean, even him and Verlander saying, I knew nothing. I didn't know anything was going on. What did you think all the tapping and the garbage can for? What do you think? It was Morse code for somebody across town getting the scores?
Yeah, what did you think that electronic device that was taped to these guys' chest was? I mean, you come on.
A gag buzzer?
Contract tracing, so give me a break.
One of those gag buzzers. So, if someone hits them on his chest, we used to have the ones you used to have ironed in your the palm of your hand to give your friend a shock.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. So, anyways, we got the NBA coming up this weekend. It's going to be interesting to see how the playoffs advance. What else we got? We got baseball coming up this weekend, and we got hockey, and then we move into the summer months, and we're getting ready for football. So, everybody, thanks for tuning in tonight. Anything else we got to hit before we go?
No, I was just going to mention that the Bucks are showing signs of life. They're coming back. Hopefully, this is basically a must-win game, and they are showing signs of life. They're up 22-9. So maybe going back home to Milwaukee will be helpful for them because if they lose this game, it's over.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think it. Well, I think it basically is over. It's just a matter of will they get swept or will they not get swept. So we'll see what happens there. All right, any big plans for the weekend? What do you got? Oh, about Happy Father's Day coming up.
Yeah, I'm going to be reporting live for us from the big time super regional baseball tournament down here this weekend. I'll be in the house on Saturday night, 7:00. Tennessee takes on LSU over at Lindsey Nelson Stadium. They've had to build seats in there in the past 3 weeks because of the demand to get into that stadium. People around here have been hurting for a winner for so long that anybody that comes close to doing anything remotely similar to winning, people want to be a part of it, and they want to touch it, and they want to feel it, and they want to rub their face in it. Because they've sucked in football for so long around here, and they've been irrelevant in college football for such an immense amount of time that, hell, now we're a baseball school. And I'm going to be over there because it is interesting, and I do really respect the head coach, Tony Vitello. This is a guy that helped Arkansas to a national championship as an assistant, was a great assistant at TCU, and hell, he has turned this baseball program around. Number 2 seed, or number 2 or 3 seed in College World Series, and now they're hosting a super regional. So I figured I'd go check it out.
I mean, I would love to see. The worst thing about college baseball is they don't show enough of it. You never know when it's on. It'll be on some obscure time when you're not ready to. So many nights I'm sitting here. I get off work at 5:00. I would not mind watching a good college baseball game.
They're all on ESPN3. You have to stream them, through Roku TV. That's the only way that I've been able to even watch it because they don't even put them on ESPNU or the SEC network. I mean, you have to stream these damn things. And I'm like, come on, you put it on TV, people will watch it. It's more exciting than Major League Baseball. The guys can actually get hits and get on base. So it's pretty exciting.
Picked up the Tesseract, breaking
more exciting than one more. I don't know what they put on really anymore because I don't watch the ESPN in the afternoon. So, anyways, that's it for us tonight. The Safety and the Sports Writer. We're moving on. We'll be back on Monday night, working on guests for then. We'll be talking all the college or the NBA basketball of the weekend. You'll give us our review report on NCAA baseball, and we'll start looking at the football, getting ready for the camps, which should be opening up in less than a month away about. So we got a lot. We're going to be a very busy summer here. Everybody, thanks for tuning in. We will see you on Monday.
All right. Adios.